and today in Blitz City DIY is the first episode of Prime Things I Learned This Week, which will be a recurring series about just what it sounds like, random things I learned the past week, and these things will have quite the range. They may be simple little things I stumble upon that don't seem like a big deal, or more intense things I may be researching for fun or solve an actual problem. And they won't always be limited to tech either, and it'll also give me a chance to reflect on my week. And one of the things with this channel that I really want to do is to contribute to the online tech and open source communities that I've learned so much from. I work in education, and I think learning and keeping an open mind on things is so important. And if this channel can contribute in some way to the knowledge base that's always growing on the internet, I'll consider it a success. So one of the things I learned this week was actually in Excel, and it's how to go from the next line with a single cell without jumping to the next row. And the way you do that, it's very simple. Alt, Enter. And I know it sounds kind of dumb, but I stumbled upon this by accident while trying to format a spreadsheet that I was in the end going to have to export to a PDF. And I think it's helpful if you're like me and basically view Excel as a version of Word with boxes. So the next thing also happened to be tech related, and it was a large problem I was having on my computer with Windows 10. Now, I've been a big cheerleader for Windows 10. I updated from 7 in December, and I've had zero regrets, zero issues. I really, really like it until I experienced what's apparently a fairly common problem that's been popping up since basically the beta version back in winter 2015, and that is having your taskbar become basically unusable. And the way this manifested for me was that I would turn on my system, everything would be fine, but then a couple minutes later, all of a sudden my start button just wasn't working. I couldn't access my sound control or my action center. I would click, but nothing would happen. I could right-click and launch commands that way, but that was it. And the only thing that would fix it would be restarting. But then the problem would just come right back. So at first, I was worried this had to do with my boot drive migration. I actually moved drives over 2 weeks ago, and this just started happening. So I thought it probably wasn't the case, unless it was some sort of problem that had taken a really long time to kind of ramp up. And what I saw on forums was that it was related to updates with certain builds of Windows 10. And sure enough, I was rocking one of those updates they were talking about, and the update had been installed right when the problem started. So at first, I uninstalled the update, see if I could essentially go back a step, but didn't work. I tried running the popular fix of inserting this line of code through PowerShell via the admin command prompt, and I actually took a screen cap of that running for the first time because it looks like some crazy code that you see in a movie about hacking. And as I ran it, I was almost 100% certain that my computer was about to crash. I thought I'd made like a huge mistake, but luckily it didn't, and essentially the line of code just resets your Windows Store apps. But to be more specific, since the help forums don't give a lot of detail, with most posters, just being general users trying to get their PC to work, which you think wouldn't be too much to ask at this point in 2016, it's almost half uninstalling all Windows native apps, the programs you don't really think about. And this includes the calendar, the phone app, calculator, things like that, along with any apps you've downloaded from the Windows Store. Now, I say this because I ran the line of code probably later than I should have on a work night because I was just insanely focused on fixing it. And sometimes I can kind of be like the technical version of Ms. Frizzle, where I just take a few too many chances and as a result just get a little bit too messy, sometimes a little bit over my head. But running this line didn't destroy my computer, at least, so there's that. But I suddenly noticed that about half my Windows apps were missing icons or not running, even after a few reboots. And to top it off, the taskbar was still freezing up. And so I was like, what do I do? How am I going to fix this? So I read an article that the indexing of files could cause a problem, and this made sense with my recent data migration. So I tried playing around with that, but no dice. And the diagnostics I was running were coming up with zero issues. So this was both like a relief, like, okay, maybe it wasn't the drive then, but it's also still frustrating because, what is causing this and how am I going to fix it? So the next most popular fix on all the forums is to create a new admin account for your computer and migrate everything over to that or a Microsoft account. And I really didn't want to do that because it just seemed drastic, and I don't run my desktop on a Microsoft account. It's a local account just for my computer, and I really didn't want to change that, as it felt like it could just cause more problems having to move everything. And who's to say that that issue wouldn't just follow this new account and just come up later? So I came across this video on YouTube by a fellow named Windows 10 Guru, which I think is a very appropriate name for him because, and I'll link the video below, and he was going through the same fixes I had seen before, except for this magic fix that actually finally worked for me. And that involves downloading a .bat or batch file script that was written by a forum user, which is linked in Windows 10's Guru's video description. And the process for this, though, it's a little bit more complicated, especially if you haven't done a lot of like kind of code insertion and kind of back-end stuff. So essentially what you do, first, you drop that batch file into your Windows System 32 folder on your C drive. And then, through the command prompt, you type in the file name of the batch file to essentially tell Windows to run that script. Now, based on what I saw happening on the screen, which unfortunately did not capture right away because it was such a shot in the dark at this point, I didn't think it would work, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to like document that. But looking at the raw code in Notepad, it looks like it repairs driver installs, firmware, and services that live in the very basic parts of Windows. It essentially hits like a reset button to kind of refresh it, which makes sense and could also point to the update actually being the culprit. And for those wondering about whether any of these things are even safe to run on your computer, of course, whenever you're doing something like that, you want to always use caution and do some research. And I also recommend, scanning it if it's a file with your antivirus software, and checking reports too. If your software provides, virus world reports, kind of like what Kaspersky does, because then you'll just have that kind of extra peace of mind, like, okay, I didn't just throw some terrible infected virus onto my computer like a moron. But both the PowerShell script and the batch file came up squeaky clean. And if you do find this issue happening to your Windows 10 machine, it does seem to be caused by a number of different things. So you may have to do a bit of trial and error like I did, which I know is frustrating, but if you can get it to work, then it's very, very triumphant. Yes, did it! But on the general forums that come up, I did not see the batch script fixed very often, and that's the only thing that did work for my particular taskbar problem. So I just kind of wanted to share with everyone in case anyone else out there is like, why is this happening? Why me? But also, if anyone out there has any knowledge on what exactly is causing this seemingly widespread issue with multiple causes, please let me know, because I'm very curious. It just seems very random and odd too, and stressful. I was stressing pretty hard because here I am. I had just finished editing, uploading my first YouTube video for a tech channel about my computer, and now I'm having this computer problem that at first I can't even diagnose, let alone fix, and it was just very twisted technical karma. And now to end this first episode, I want to literally bookend it with a book. I'm currently reading Lust and Wonder by Augusten Burroughs, and I've read all of his books. I really like his writing style, which is super funny and honest, and he's also one of those authors where it seems like with every book he just gets better and better as craft. And I know that sometimes the memoir as a genre can kind of get a bad rap, but I really love reading people's stories. I love becoming so immersed in the details of a person's life that they're willingly sharing with an audience, and I think that you can learn at least one thing from every book, but especially with memoirs, I think you get a new appreciation for the human experience as a whole with every story, and you become more aware too of other people's paths, and I think that's really important and really good for personal growth. And with that concludes episode 1 of Prime Things I Learned This Week. If you liked it or disliked it, feel free to let me know by clicking the pictorial representations or using your words below. Until next time, this has been Blitz City DIY.